All right. The reason why I wanted to discuss the blending process with spirit is because I started blending with spirit circles, I think about 2019. And when I started these circles, they were with the intention to learn to blend with spirit for trance mediumship, just to blend for a whole hour and nothing else, to quiet our minds and allow our spirit to come in and blend with us mentally. But it went into another direction. So a lot of us started experiencing different feelings of spirit blending with us. Literally, we could feel their age. Some of us would, even as myself over time, started blending with the feeling of, how do you explain it? I could literally feel if it's an elderly person, that's an elderly person, and I felt myself wrinkling up like an elderly person. Or if it was a child, you can feel the child blending with you as a child. So recently what's happened with me is when I'm blending with spirit and they come through in a blending process, I learned through an event that I recently had that our mind is in it. And it's true, our mind is in it when we're trying to speak into trance, when we're blending with spirit and we're experiencing the sensations that they're putting on us. So through this, I've learned or developed that if you allow spirit to come in and blend with you, and you feel their essence, and you feel their true, beautiful, spiritual way that they were here when they were here on earth, what they felt like then, if they were elderly or young or middle-aged or whatever, and then they will take you down into a deep level of trance or a lower depth. So I wanted to have others share with me what their experience is, and they blend with spirit. Do you understand what I'm saying, Debbie? I apologize.
Okay.
I think Debbie and I spoke about this before.
Yeah.
And so this was done quite by accident when this started coming about. You know, with trance mediumship, it's mind to mind. But actually it's, with my experience, it is not just mind to mind. First, it comes with the blending of spirit within so, like soul to soul, and then mind to mind. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, my experience, the way that I would look at it, it's been a long, long personal journey for me, and it really started with me when I think back to when I started to do Reiki, and actually as you tuned into that power and felt that real strong connection, you know, and you were taking on all their mannerisms and everything, and at that time it wasn't necessarily that I knew that that's what I was feeling. I was just aware of this different feeling. I would describe it as a different feeling to my own feeling. So that, and it made me very aware of my body, made me aware of how my body was responding to what was happening. So at the time, just going along with what was happening, what I was feeling, to then be what I was feeling. Okay, so then actually seeing that as I was working on a client, I opened my eyes, and when I looked, there was a mirror in front of me. And when I looked in the mirror, the face staring back was who I had felt all those years that had been working with me. But it was because it was a gradual process as I went through each stage of the Reiki journey, you know, this became more so that I was aware that there's no hair on my arms, but I was aware of this thick hair on my arms, you know, and it was more like I'm thinking, but I'm feeling it, because I've always been very clairsentient. So I would always feel, if I connected to spirit, I would have always felt the personality, you know, but this was going in a different direction because I could physically feel this connection. I could feel the actual hair on my face, you know, so to see it, it actually gave me a fright in the beginning, because I was like, oh my gosh, what is that? And even down to the colouring of the clothes, you know. So coming forward with that, what I learned is how, first of all, how the body speaks to us, how our physical body speaks to us, and how when we are tuning in at different stages, it's like when we talk about sitting in our own power first, okay? So sitting in your own power is getting to know your own energy. You really start to know how your energy moves through you, your own power. And through that, then when we have the connection to, as I say, all that is, so we're connecting into the everything, to the divine, Mother Earth, Father God, whatever you want to call it, it's actually feeling that expansion. So that when the spirit comes forward, so when we then talk about going in and developing trance, for instance, it's because I had that awareness to begin with. When I started to really develop my trance, I was already aware of these sensations in my body. For instance, in the case that I felt the energy moving within me. Okay, so there was my own power. I was then aware of the expansion. So I was aware of, like, it wasn't just me, but I was contained within everything. Okay, so moving from that with the spirit coming close, it was the subtle differences that grew and grew and grew. So for instance, I was aware maybe of a coldness coming. I was then aware of a double heartbeat, as in when within the mechanisms of the throat, of the, you know, of the voice box coming forward. So each stage brought you on a journey within itself. But what it did is it taught you, and the one thing I struggled in the beginning was my breath used to take over. So I used to fight that, thinking, oh no, you know, you're going to hyperventilate. But with allowing myself to go with it, I understood how the body was reacting to spirit drawing close, how it was affecting my body, which
How does
then
it affect
helped me to let go. Sorry,
you?
Julie.
How does it affect you with trance?
Well, how it affects me with trance is because with the recognition of knowing, right, okay, I feel them coming close, I don't panic, I allow it to be. You allow it. So then you think about the breath, you're taking that breath. A lot of people will talk about maybe feeling nauseated, okay? So as you come into that vibration, okay, you maybe feel nauseated because it's that you're coming into a higher vibration. You know, you're blending with the spirit. So as they're coming down, you're coming up. But that can react to the body. So the body starts to feel nauseated. So by breathing into that vibration, you bring yourself more into balance so that you don't react to it, because the body's reacting to it. It doesn't understand. The mind is kicking in and thinking, what's going on here? What's going on here? So by breathing into it, what you do is you go with the flow of the vibration. You allow yourself to flow within the vibration. That vibration is the spirit. That's how they're connecting. They connect with us on vibration. But we feel it as in the whole. We feel the personality. It's like when Eric joins me, my healing guide, when Eric comes, he always comes on this side. So I will be aware of a sensation on this side. And as he draws close, he draws very close into the heart center here. But he comes in this gentleness, very, very gentleness. I feel that personality. So now when I feel that, I'm very relaxed as he comes and joins me. And I have such trust now, but that trust has been gained through working with him, sitting with the energy and just allowing myself to move with it. But at each stage, not just moving within it and here I am. It's a long process of, you bring the most important word we bring forward here is trust. So you're trusting that process, you're trusting that beautiful blend. And sometimes, as I say, the blend can come in really strong, but it depends on who you're working with. It could be a new guide coming in, you know. Sorry.
So I can remember thinking some months ago before I met Milada, I thought there's got to be something else to this. Even in the blending circles. I said, there's got to be something else. We're supposed to ignore everything else and go very quiet into our minds as soon as we can get quiet into our mind. And our minds are kind of in it when we're feeling spirit blending with us and we feel the process. But if you really develop it, it can take you in. You can keep that feeling of spirit within you. As far as, I'm going to use you, Milada, as an example. Sorry. The very first time I sat with Milada, I was blown away. And I said, this is it.
Yeah.
Because literally, she brings out the personality, her body changes, her face changes into their expression and brings out, she just lets it go. She goes down the trance. So that's when I was like, that's what I was looking for. That's exactly what I've been trying to say.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to bring some people together to see if what you think. And first, Melodic, do you want to explain to us how you do it? How it feels to you when sage comes through?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think I have, from all my years as a classical musician, I have that comfort level with disappearing into the experience. I think that's where it really came from. And so then as I developed a relationship with sage and I'm aware of sage, when sage first started coming through, I remember just feeling that same, and I'm going to use the word intoxication, even though it's not intoxication, but it's that feeling of like the music would take me, you know, playing violin, the music would take me. And it was the same feeling because sage would come forward and I would just feel this feeling of comfort and love and the sense of sage's face coming through my face. And I would just relax into it just like I would the music. And it was something sort of irresistible to me, the same as the music was. It would just draw me to it. And so I guess the trust had been built up, probably not by accident, for years and years with my music experience. And so then when the guys would be present, it was just like, oh, thank God you're here, you know, and I would just relax right into it. So, but I feel them in my face first. And that's, you know, like Debbie talks about the clairsentience, that's where I feel them first, is in my face. Like I feel them coming forward in my face.
Yeah. What about you, Andrew?
What would you like to know?
What is your experience with blending in spirit?
The feeling first. It's always been the feeling. That's never changed. The heartbeat, or that sense of there being a rush of energy, that's an initial reaction to an energy you're not used to. It was quite common in the early days, and then the more I worked with them, the more it just disappeared. The emotions, the personality, the feeling of my face kind of like morphing as if it's plastic. I feel that when these two coming together, of me and the guide, no matter which guide it is, it always happens every time. It's just that is the process. And always, no matter whether you're pretty much unconscious, whether you're lightly inspired, it is always a mental process. It is happening, their consciousness through yours. The difference is your experience of it will change depending on how strong your ability is to allow that to happen. And it is, the more you do it, the better you get, and the stronger it is, and the more you understand it cannot not be a feeling process. It is impossible for it not to be felt. And when you kind of allow yourself almost not to be subservient, that's the wrong word, you got to give something of yourself to spirit, because you've got to know that it isn't them replacing you and taking you out of the equation. It is always a question of you have to blend with them. And the closer you can get this blending, the more you will feel the presence of spirit, the more the people watching will feel it, the more they will see the presence of spirit, and the more you will bring forward that through whatever you say. And I certainly know that there is a dividing line. If we say trance, and certainly when I work, the trance and me are here, but then we start to notice things like maybe transfiguration is starting to creep in, and you're seeing energy and visual stuff, not just clairvoyance. You're seeing visual stuff as that blending process happens. And so there is almost like a grey area. There's black and white. If black is I am connected just, and this is trance, and white is physical mediumship, there is a grey area where the two meet. And so that you can also see signs of transfiguration. And certainly Debbie mentioned about the coldness. That is a sign that spirit take heat from the room. And when they take heat from the room to start to manifest physical mediumship in some ways, certainly psychic breezes. are very common, and the room will go cold, the atmosphere will change, and you will know it. You'll know it because you'll feel it. But I don't want to wax on about it, because once I start talking about it, that'll be it.
That's okay.
So, but
Very
the point,
interesting.
it is felt, and I understand all of my guides, not necessarily because they have to show themselves, but I feel myself becoming them.
Mhm. I do too. I've seen you in trance.
Yeah, exactly. So the point is, but what I need to say is that even when I can get a cracking connection with the team, I'm still part of that, and I'm still aware. I don't get put into some different room. And what I hate hearing is when people say, "Oh, you're not in trance if you're aware of what you're saying." That is one of the most
I agree.
destructive things that anyone can ever say to a student, because unless you are the 0.1% whereby you go unconscious, you will always be aware of what you say to some degree. It may be fleeting glimpses, it may be half, but there will always be part of you in it. And when people say, "Oh, I couldn't have been in trance because I remembered what I said," and I go, in that case, you don't understand how it actually works, because that is the truth of it. You will be part of it. But I hear people say, "No, you mustn't be aware. You need to be unconscious." In that case, they don't understand how it works.
I actually thought about stopping it because but I know Spirit's with me and I know Spirit's speaking through me, but then I thought, but I'm not unconscious. So I actually thought about giving it up because of that.
And how terrible that would have been.
I'm sorry.
I said, how terrible that would have been, though. That would have, and I made the same mistake. Someone said to me, "Oh, you need to be unconscious." So every time I sat and didn't fall unconscious, which was every time, I thought I was failing.
Yeah.
And I felt the same as you. And I thought, well, I obviously can't do trance because I'm aware of what I'm saying. And so I might as well give up, because obviously that X factor, I've obviously not got it. But it isn't until you speak to someone that knows what they're talking about, and they say, "Well, Andy, you realise that you are part of it." And I go, "Well, no one told me that. They said to me that I shouldn't be part of it." So therefore, when it never happened, I always thought I was failing. And anyone that's ever had lessons with me knows that I emphasize that greatly, because it will destroy you if you think you need to be in some sort of different dimension. Anyway, I'll stop talking there, because
that's great advice. And this is why we should have more discussions like this.
yeah.
Because I get a lot of people who message me, come to me, and they don't think they can do trance because they can't get their minds to go blank, completely blank. And I don't think it's humanly possible, almost, for a few percent maybe.
Do you know what? The easiest way to get a great connection to your team, start the conversation. Don't wait for this magic moment. You sit there like this and you're quiet, and you just sit there and you think, "Oh, are they close enough? Shall I say something?" You think, "Oh, I'll just wait a bit longer and a bit longer and a bit longer." And then people wait, and then there becomes fear, because then they think, "Oh, what if I'm not close enough? What if they're not close enough? What if I don't say anything intelligent?" Which is always a risk with me. But the point is, when you start talking and your team are starting to connect with you, you can use that process of talking to get them to come closer, because they need your voice to be doing something. If you're just sitting there for a magic moment, it ain't going to happen.
It's kind of similar to mediumship on this level, on a higher level. Once you hear the voice of somebody agreeing with you, or maybe taking it or no or yes, it starts coming fast. It's the same thing with trance, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go.
Thank you. How about you, Angelina?
Everybody, I agree with a lot of what Andrew said, and of course also Debbie. Couple of things here. I think that, first of all, to begin with, it's quite normal to understand what this feeling, how this feeling comes about, because do you have an aura? Gotta have that. I remember somebody saying, "Does everybody have an aura?" So if you're not gonna, when you drop your body, then you're not gonna have an aura. But the moment you have an aura, that is it. That is your energy. So therefore, that's what the two things that need to come together. You've got your aura and you've got the energy of the spirit world. So you've got to have those two to get that together. I also think, though, that what is very important to me is that everybody's really got to trust their own development and their own team. To me, this is very important. And even when you teach people, you've always got to have that little bit of window space and say that your connection and your trust and your way of understanding of spirit team also can be very personal. So of course, each teacher can only teach through their own experience and what they know. And that's also correct as well. I mean, I agree with Andrew that he's saying that people say that, you know, you should not be aware at all. I disagree. I agree with him. But it doesn't mean that there are people out there who do not remember anything. And that's fine. And that's their way of doing it, because that's the way that they've trusted their spirit team, and that's the way they want to do it, and they feel good with it. And I'm still fine with that. It's the same with using the word deep. You know, you tell people you got to go deeper, and they think they're going to be somewhere and they're going to take a big dive, you know, into the sea or something. It doesn't work like that. So in order for you to experience that, you need to find your own way around it. And how you're going to do that? You've got to sit. You've got to sit regularly. And it does take, and I'm not only referring to trance, I'm referring to your own personal development as an individual. You've got to start with that. And for me, it's completely wrong when, you know, you can get people that have never sat to meditate, never sat in there, you know, and then all of a sudden it's the in thing, you know, to be in trance. What does that mean? You've got to understand yourself, and it's a whole process of developing. And the developing, it's not about increasing your energy by sitting more and more. You will develop by walking through life. And life can give you bloody hard spanks and bang you across those walls until you don't know where you're bouncing. And that's how you're going to grow, because you've come here to go through a process of learning. Now, how on earth are you going to learn? You've chosen that journey. You put together that story. Surely you're going to go through that. And it's also a process of developing. So it is a very personal journey.
So what is your experience when you develop? I mean, when you're blending with spirit, what is your experience?
I have learned that through my own. That's holistically what I'm trying to say. So I've tried not to, perhaps it has to do with my personality. Perhaps I've always had a problem to sort of follow the masses, if you see what I mean, I think that has a little bit to do with my personality. So I've always kind of wanted to do it my way, learn my way. And that's the way that I also teach other people. I also encourage people to learn their way as well. They can take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt, put it through one ear, come out the next, but they've got to experience themselves. So for me, if you're talking about, you see, you also mentioned mediumship. To me, it's very different. You know, mediumship for me, they just step into my space.
I was actually as an example.
Yeah, that's fine. But I'm just saying it can be very different, because mediumship, for me, they always come in on my right-hand side, always. And I've learned to trust that. They always come in on my right-hand side. They're there. Actually, they're very often they come there even before I'm supposed to see somebody, that somebody has an appointment at 3 o'clock. And I say to the spirit world, well, I've got Debbie coming at 3 o'clock. And I'm opening the door and inviting the spirit world to come through. And of course, you know, my mind is sort of, and I can be doing something like repetitive, like just washing my dishes or something, but I'm in a kind of an altered state. They'll come in and they even start telling you things. And I very often have to say, okay, just hold on there, you know.
I do that too.
Yeah. And you just say, okay, hold on there. And there's always that part of me that says, wait a minute, I better double check that one, you know. So when the person comes, you kind of say, it's okay now. And then you recognize that energy again, and then you kind of flow with it. But I also understand what Milada was saying about the music. that takes her. And understand that as well, because it's the same thing that I do when I do the spirit portraiture. Nobody stands there to pose for me. Of course not. Spirit is not going to sit there and just pose like the Mona Lisa. Of course not. So when that bit is done, you know, when they say whatever that, you know, my mother used to make me rice pudding every Sunday or whatever, and all that is over and done with, then I just pick up the pencil because I'm passionate about what I'm doing. And, you know, that's really important. You've got to love it. You know, you've got to love spirit. And so if I put my hand there on the paper, I just simply allow myself to be. And literally what you are just saying, be that person. Now I am more that person. And then I just let go. So you've got to kind of let go with it. With the trance, it's a little bit different for me. I feel as if there's more happening in front of my face. In the earlier parts, there could be even heartbeat changes during the day. Before something happened, it would even happen during the day that my heartbeats will start changing. So I was getting the feeling that something unusual was happening. And I think that's where they can be preparing you, you know, in moments of sort of fairly quietness, you know, when you're on your own, they can also be adjusting you there. So there is the sensation of the heartbeat, like you said, definitely a more of a kind of blending in or physically. Sometimes you may be your features might be changing a little bit because of the energy of that guy that's working with you, but you learn to recognize who they are. That's why it's important, again, to learn to recognize who they are. And really, do they have to have a name? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The important thing is to identify with the energy. So sometimes I can feel the difference if my face is almost like being pulled. It's a different feeling. It's like a nut thing. And I feel as if that kind of communication comes down differently. And also other things. I think that if there is a difference between trance speaking and inspirational speaking. It's two different things. And that's the other thing that people confuse. Inspirational speaking, it's not trance speaking. Trance speaking, you speak on subjects that you know very little about. You also, the tone of your voice, and also the quality of the language is different. So there are quite a few things that can be different. And so that if the quality of the language is different, again, it's something that sort of takes you. With me, Andrew said that you can start a conversation. I can accept that as well. The way it starts with me is I get the first sentence, okay? And it goes brr, 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 you know? And if I don't open my mouth and then if I delay a little bit and then I begin to get branches, it's almost as if I'm going to know what the next sentence is and the next one is. And then the next thing I know is my head is getting the concept. So I've got to let it go. And then I'm over. But that's something I have learned to trust. You see? So everything is a little bit personal.
I agree. I think, well, you and I sit together, so I've seen you quite a bit in trance, and I can tell that you're receiving it with the blending. So what my thing is that grumpy comes through and my head goes down. So I'm constantly told I got to correct my posture. But it's not as authentic when I'm trying to correct my posture with him. And then my mind gets a little bit too much into it. I get a little bit too much. What is your take on that, Lisa?
Well, I'd agree with all that everybody said, but I do agree sometimes when you say about your mind coming in, and that is where I'd like to take it right back to the beginning, is sometimes we can decide that if you're in a group, is there going to be a comparison with performance. So there's this fear factor. You're in a circle of friends, and if you relax into the friendship, you then get the genuine you and the connection coming through. But it's like when everybody starts out, there is a reticence to let go, because people don't want to be taken over by something. They don't want to do things. They have this, there's a precedence. I can't be somebody else. This is me. But when you make a connection, you have that, we're all talking about trust. We have this real friendship with our guides. And I do feel that we're talking about development. Well, most of us, I think, have had something since we were knee-high, somewhere along the way. Things have happened to us. So you relax into it. You are very accepting that there is another world, that there are things going on. And often it's to do with our own personalities, as Angelina was saying. That when we're much more relaxed with things that go on around us, Milada with her music, when you listen to music, your imagination can go off in all sorts of directions. That's why her blending is almost so pure that I've seen. I haven't sat with everybody, but with Milada, the purity is there because she drifts off into this musical world where it's all playing out in front of her and it comes out in the way she speaks. And for those that can do that, it's amazing. Sometimes people want to do trance and develop, but I'm going to use this term, they can be a bit tight-assed about it. You know, they're sort of, I'm going to be something, I'm going to do this. And you know what it's like when you try, you could try too hard. The idea is to let go and enjoy the music, enjoy the presence, whatever it gives you, and know that you are safe. You have to feel safe. And you get that safety connection when you know them and they know you. So bring on the music.
Yeah, Milada does melt into it.
Mm.
And I think a lot of us are kind of mentally programmed not to, because we have to have that stature, you know, set straight. I don't know, but when I saw her and I spoke to a few other people about it, they were like, somebody told me we were programmed to be in a certain behavior while we're doing trance. How can you do trance if you're behaving a certain way mentally? Like put your shoulders back. If your guide is elderly and goes down, what do you think, Andrew? I'd be interested in see what you say about that.
About what bit, sorry?
Posture doing trance. Say your guide is elderly. Grumpy always, when I feel Grumpy blending with me, I feel him, he was very elderly, so his head's always forward. Yeah. I have a better connection when I'm doing that, but I won't do a demonstration because I'm afraid I'll be judged for it. I have tried to lift my head.
But the thing is as well, if you are allowing your guides, we do have to allow guides to guide us. We have to be ready and receptive to their influence. But as Angelina has said, you have to allow that to be natural. If Grumpy makes you bend over and makes you sit in a certain way, it's part of the experience that you're going through. You shouldn't fight it. And unless, like, let's say you connected to a guide and they seem to make your head sit back in the chair and you were sitting like that. And that is blatantly really uncomfortable for me. So what would I do? I wouldn't just say, oh, that's fine because my guide obviously is making me do that. I would say, guys, that's uncomfortable. I don't like that. It's not helping me relax. But look, I look like I'm in some sort of gurning contest when some of my guides come through and talk, because some of them can almost look at you like they're scowling at you. But the point is the presence of love, the presence of them, their essence and personality, that comes through. And so when you feel yourself becoming the guide, then allow yourself to become them. Don't worry about it. We're not producing TV sets off a conveyor belt. What you're doing is, trance is a mental process. There is a consciousness connecting to your consciousness. It's going to come together and something will happen. It's like if I bung flour, eggs and water and sugar together and I mix it together, what happens? I put it in an oven and out comes a cake. But if I use different ingredients and put them in the oven, what comes out? Something completely different. And you're unique, and you shouldn't want to be like anyone else, and we shouldn't try to emulate anyone else. But what we can do is make the process easier by saying to your guides, I would like to practice trance tonight. I would like you to blend with me. And if they make you sit there, and if your mouth droops to one side, or you feel your hand contorting, you've got to remember, as Angelina said, they're blending through your auric field, this life force. And as they come into that, and even as I feel them with me now, I feel their presence. I can feel reactions within my face. And it's not that they're doing anything to my face. It is that they're blend with that auric field, which is also part of me. So as they move closer, I feel them like attached to the back of my head. And I remember watching a couple of weeks ago, we were doing trance healing. And as I literally sat there, I saw the face of the guide sat in the background. He literally moved so far forward that I clearly saw his grey beard. And I was like, oh. And I was looking down, I was thinking, and I said to the woman who was teaching, I said, what did you observe just then? She said, well, I saw your guide come in. I said, was it the guy to the left or to my left shoulder on the wall? She said, yeah, it was. I said, I know, I literally saw these grey whiskers come down. It was like he blended with me, went a bit too far forward and then came back. But it was so profound and it was so obvious. I knew immediately who it was because he has a feeling, like Angelina said, like Debbie said, and Lisa. But the point is, you allow it to be what it's meant to be, because then you're going to be the most authentic that you can be. And that is surely what all of us want. You just want to be authentic.
So this is what I've been working for quite a while now. So when I sat with Angelina before one time, and a guide came through with her personality completely changed. And I think it kind of surprised her. I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the first time I've ever seen it. Her Native American, I believe it was, came through. And it was as though he took her completely, he didn't take her over, but of course we know that's taboo. I shouldn't say that because it scares people. But as though he did take her over. And it was literally her. And then Debbie, for example, Friday evening, her second encircle, the second guide that came through. I don't know if it was your guide, Debbie, or it was somebody different came through, and it was, you could just see him with her. It was like, no, you could see him covering her body, so forth. So these are the things. So she puts her body in a different way. Angelina did that day when I experienced it with her, and I do a lot of observing. Milada does it all the time, which is really fantastic. Milada, she just releases and goes, and it's just. And Lisa's face changes when Running Bear comes through, and her posture is up. He has great posture.
But Julie, I mean, I've sat with you quite a few times, and when Grumpy comes, I mean, I can always tell before you drop your head, you can feel his presence, and then I know it's him. So absolutely, you know, it's
well, the reason why I wanted this discussion is because, not to offend anybody, who teaches or anything like that, but I believe that things are being taught to us in a wrong manner. As for example, I wouldn't bring Grumpy into a demonstration that I wanted to, because I was constantly told you can't go out in a demonstration with your posture like that because you will be picked on. You'll be ridiculed and everything else. So I just backed off of it. So
Well, I left a circle because we were told that, and that's SNU. I left
There we go.
because she kept on saying it wasn't me, but I didn't like the way it was being taught. It was somebody else, and the head dropped forward, and she became tense, and she had this contracture in her limbs, and you could see that this person became whoever was with her. And the tutor said, no, you've got to relax. And you sort of think, well, how can she? It didn't make sense. But also there's one point. Has anybody ever read a book by Ina Twigg? Anybody
I've heard of her.
Ina?
I've heard of her.
She used to sit with Maurice Barbanel.
Barbanel, yeah.
And she, and the book I'm reading at the moment describes that the trance sessions that were spontaneous, and somebody quickly brought out or transcribed, and she cannot remember a thing that was said, and that bothers me when she says that, because there are times, I mean, I can't remember what I said 10 minutes ago, but that's my old age. So, you know, I do agree that we might say, oh, I can't remember, what did I say? But that is purely one of those events. But she literally says she cannot remember the whole session. But I would...
Yeah, I find the same though. I bet most people that have done trance could not remember verbatim what their guide has said. Because the fact is, if you remember it all clearly, the chances are your altered state maybe wasn't as strong as it could be. If you are in an altered state, your mind isn't fully 100% invested in what is said, because some of it is being occupied by a guide or many guides at the same time. So if I'm a man and I definitely can't multitask. And so the point is, I do not know if you said, what did I say? If there was a half an hour conversation, I might remember what would amount to 5 or 10 minutes at most. But then if you started saying, Andy, you said this, or your guide said this, and then that, pennies would start to drop. And I would start to think, I remember something about that. And so I would say that would be a good sign. But the point is, some trance mediums can be unconscious, and that is not wrong to be unconscious. It is the ability of their guides to take them to that place that they're able to go to, but we shouldn't use that as a target. That is just my feeling. So
yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you absolutely and totally. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I think a lot of it though is to do with our vocabulary, because we say, you know, deep, taken down, taken over, control. And sometimes when you have an understanding, you know what you mean, but it might not come across. It might not mean the same thing. It's like a color. What's yellow to one is sort of orange to another. There's a rainbow, isn't there, where one blends, and that's where learning and reading is important, because you know what you mean by control, you know what you mean by your depth or whatever. But I think sometimes the vocabulary is not adequate to deal with it, because it's like when you feel your guides, how can you describe that love, that intensity? It's just almost, it's unimaginable. I couldn't find words to describe that. So I think perhaps we're held back by our own vocabulary.
Right, but also deep is a very deep, you can't quantify where that is. There is no place that you can tell me, any one of you, to say, oh, this is where deep trance is. So
I like to use awareness. I like to use the word awareness.
The word in the first place, you might as well say, I want you to allow yourself to connect with your guides as strongly as you can. Because if you've had a crap day at work, if we say deep is, we give it a number, and then you say, oh, crikey, I didn't get to this deep level. And you say, well, why does it matter? Because when you go into trance, you do not just fall off a cliff and then come out the other side. It's like this. It is undulating. It is a wave. It literally is a wave. Your brain waves are changing all the time, and your connection to your guide is going up and down like a dog's hind leg, all the way through the philosophy that's shared. Absolutely, it is. I know all of you that do trance, you would have had that experience where you feel you're more present at times, and other times you feel that you're barely present. And that's just how it works. I mean, that's in my opinion. I could be wrong.
That's how I feel sometimes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you as well. But I think, the problem is sometimes, I've seen people producing sort of a scientific, wiring up these, and, I know you're agreeing with, and they say, oh, when you're really into trance and you're on to this level and all that. But this is the same thing, if I may say what Lisa's saying, that's why I don't like structured institutions. No way, I run 1,000 miles, you give me a structure that I have to go through and tick all the, whatevers. You've got to be kidding me. Where do I come in as an individual? What trust do I have with my guides? I've got to find that out for myself. It's always, obviously, you've got to start from somewhere. I agree with that. But not to be, like you're saying, afraid to be doing that. And this is not correct. And then someone tries to push you back in a sort of in the line of the queue. It doesn't work like that at all. So I'm all very much in favor of, like I said, the key is really sitting and with your guides. If you're not doing that, forget it.
Really should sit with your guides. Although we do have different spirits coming through besides our guides in our circle.
Yeah, but I mean, being familiar and understanding and differentiating and understanding the energy. And like I said, it's not about a name at all. It's about a frequency. It's about recognizing. It's like when you see an old friend,
Mm-hmm.
They're like that.
That's a really good way of explaining it. I do know that I can work with some people who speak in trance, and then when I ask them if they know the difference, they don't know the difference in the energy of their guides. So when I ask, do you know your guides, I don't mean by name. I mean, do you know their energy?
Yeah.
And then I wonder about that also. Do you know what I mean? If you don't know who your guide's energy is, Andrew, you were going to say something.
No, I was just unmuting so that if anyone's question.
So what do you feel about that, Lisa? If you don't know your guide's energy, but you're doing trance, what is your opinion about that?
Well, then I'd feel very lost. I'd probably still continue to delve in finding out who or what they are, but there again, that's again is learning, because you're obviously being moved on to another area, so you've got to explore whatever that energy is, because you're there to serve spirit, full stop.
I'm not putting judgment, so please don't misunderstand. I'm just trying to understand how anybody could bring their guide through in trance but not know who their guide is as far as the energetic feeling of it.
You're never going to have established that relationship with them if you don't spend the time with them. The only way that you get to know your guides is spending the time with them. It's like, as I say, I love that phrase that Angelina used, as in sitting with a friend, and that's what I would, when I say about connecting with your guides, connect with your friends. These come, these are our friends that come and sit in our energy and connect with us. And it's like I say, we've got to always remember it's a two-way partnership as well. They're learning from us as we're learning from them. So when we commit, they're committing too. So I mean, it's taking that, and thinking about it that way as well. You're developing this bond, and if you don't sit with them to get that bond, you're not going to understand why.
Right, I agree. I don't understand it either. What is your take on that, Andrew?
Spending time with your team.
If you had a student, I don't want to say student, so I don't want to put you in a spot. If you knew somebody that was speaking in trance, and then when you talked to them and asked them if they felt the energy of if they knew the energy of their guide, who their guides were, not per se by name, but by energy and their auric field, their energy, the blending process, and they said no.
Well, I mean, I suppose there's two ways of looking at it. Firstly, guides do come and go, and sometimes you will feel the presence of someone blending with you, and you're thinking, I'm not sure I recognize you. And so there is that initial moment where you think, how do I know it's an energy I want to connect to? Well, it will have a presence. There will be an emotion with it. There will be a sense. And if you're connecting to an energy you're not familiar with by name or by just the way it feels, then I would just say, ask yourself the question, do I like how that energy feels? Does that energy make me feel safe? Does it feel loving? And I feel if you're connecting to the right type of energy, as in the right type of spirit people, because there are every type out there. So it isn't all angels and, fluffy bunnies. It is, if there was, people that were really not nice, when they're walking down your high street, then they're just the same potentially when they go to the spirit world. So it's when people say, oh, I just allow my guides to make sure that I'm connecting to someone nice. And you say, well, you're not even invoking your own free will. So whenever I work, I say, guys, whoever I connect to tonight, especially if you're doing a lot of one-to-one reading, potentially I say I only want to connect to unconditional love. Maybe that sounds airy-fairy or flowery. I don't care, because to be honest, I'm not taking a risk. Because if I say I want to connect to spirit, then I'm opening the door to anything. And I know people that have had very personal experiences that they would not wish upon any of you or even their worst enemy. And that was by dipping their toes into puddles that were not pleasant. So let's not kid ourselves that everyone up there or around us is loving. And so my answer to the person would be, if it feels loving, if you feel safe, then you go ahead. If it doesn't, then you say, sorry, guys, not interested. Simple as that. And then if you are happy with it, you build up that relationship. You sit with them like Angelina and Debbie and Lisa have said, you sit and you sit and you sit. And a new friend becomes an old friend, doesn't it? And then all of a sudden you can trust and you can believe in them and you can let go and you'll get a better connection. And the next time you work, it will be even better. So it's win-win, but there is no shortcut. Simple as that. There is no shortcut.
Do you feel that you wish to connect to the highest plane is what covers you when you start, when you actually go to sit down and you go to sit to be with, to do blending, is that you cover yourself by saying that you are there for the highest plane?
I don't mention planes, to be honest. I just say that I want to connect. Those that I work with tonight must be motivated solely by unconditional love.
Okay.
That is a bit of a mantra. And I just say it because you're drawing your line in the sand, aren't you? So you are saying, you don't have to say, I don't want to connect to this or that or something else, and you'd be there all night. I just say, this is what I do want to connect to, end of story. And I allow my guides to guide me and to make sure I've stuck my flag in the sand. They know where I stand, and then they can just do their job, which is making sure I connect only to the good stuff. So that's just me. Look, some people would say, Andy, you don't need to, doesn't matter. But that's their journey, isn't it?
I know my experience is when I do that and I asked to connect to my higher heart chakra out of love, I get my connections even better.
Yeah, because their motivation should only be love. What other reason is there to connect to you? Nothing.
Yeah, I think it's all an intentional thing. I mean,
yeah,
I like to say I only give permission to, because I'm the one. Again, it's the personality.
That's a good.
Oh my God.
True, that's what I say. I say I only give permission
Yeah.
only to the purest of the light to enter my space. And I make that intention because it's me controlling my space, you know?
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, you know, this word about deep and whatever. I mean, I don't know, maybe my guides gave it to me, but I like to use nowhere to go and nowhere to be. And I've used that in the workshop, right, Debbie, a few hours ago.
Yeah.
I said, nowhere to go, nowhere to be.
Yeah.
It's a nothingness. So when you've got no boundaries as such, you know, then it's fine because then you just float.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Milana's saying that she's noticed her Wi-Fi's put it in chat. She's noticed there is a difference in how healers approach guides versus evidential mediums by their start into spiritual work. Not a judgment, but just how they perceive personalities versus energy of guides who come through. Have you noticed this? Do you understand the question? Milana, unmute yourself and just try.
Okay, can you hear me? It's very choppy. Okay. So, for example, I have a friend who her primary work is healing. She doesn't ever have like imagery or names attached to her guides, but she knows the feeling of them, right? Versus I feel Sage and I can see his face and I just have this sense. I started in where she started in healing. Something I noticed it's really beautiful, but it's just
Your bandwidth is really bad.
how they feel. Oh, say it again.
Yeah, you are breaking up. Maybe you could put it in the chat if you can.
Yeah.
Sorry, Milana.
I tell you what might work, Milado. If you've got a bad internet, then sometimes if you turn off the video but only have yourself on audio, sometimes that will reduce the bandwidth so that we'll hear what you say, but we can't see you. I'm not saying it will work because it may be something different.
Okay,
Is that better?
So far?
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay. So the example I was giving is a friend of mine started her work in healing, whereas I started in evidential mediumship. This isn't the only example I have, but this particular friend, she receives her guides in terms of how they feel to her, not in a visual, clairvoyant manner or how they feel in her body like I do. And I just wondered if anyone else has noticed that as an evidential medium coming into trance versus coming into it as a healer, if you've noticed that just a difference, like a personal difference.
I'd like to share with you something that I found. I was always involved in healing from very, very, young age. I was always clairsentient. I never seen. I always just very, very clairsentient. But when I went into the church, the spiritual church, I also they says you need to do mediumship, and I said, "Oh, I don't do mediumship. I'm a healer," But the process was that I went into the awareness class and, sort of like look between doing connecting to spirit, but also psychically as well, connecting to the energy. And what I found was really surprising. The first day that I was invited into the closed circle, I stood up. The lady says, "Right, Debbie, stand up and give a link." And I stood up and I thought, "I've nobody with me." She went, "No, you have. There's someone with you." And I went, "No, there's nobody here. I don't have anybody with me." She says, "No, Debbie, there is somebody with you. Take a breath, take a deep breath and go with it." And when I did, it was as if there was a camera in front of me. So all these imageries came. So now I would have both. But I never had that until I was invited into the closed circle. So that was maybe 2 years after I started the awareness class. So that's interesting you say about that. That was my own experience of that. Yeah.
Milana says that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Just interesting.
Does anybody else want to chime in on their experiences with blending? Go on, Cheryl.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay, because I didn't know if there's another Cheryl that raised their hand.
Sorry.
I more I feel their presence there. I start to feel it around my face, and then it just starts to I just know that they're there. It's hard for me to explain since I do just feel everything. I don't have visuals yet, but I do know when spirit's there, and I do know when if they're there for healing or speaking or whatever. So it's like I said, a knowing and a feeling for me.
It's wonderful. Thank you. Does anybody else? Does anybody have any questions? Don't be shy. Okay. I think this has been a great chat. It's kind of, well, an hour, I guess that's good, but thank you everybody for your input. I think it's great.
It was really enjoyable. Thank you for everyone that come.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all for coming in.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank
See
you,
you
Judy,
soon.
for putting it together.
Bye
Bye.
now. Bye bye
Thank
now.
you.
Thank you. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.